Hey, this is Madeline Sklar.
And Suze Cooper, and you're listening to All Things Audio.
Hello, everybody. Madeline Sklar here, and this is All Things Audio. Unfortunately, Suze Cooper is out today, but I've assembled a great group of co-hosts. I've got Jennifer Navarrete, I've got Michael Sterling, and I've got Morgan Evitz.
Fantastic.
Happy to be here. Yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun.
Good.
Welcome, guys. Thank you all so much for being my guest co-host. I'm so excited to have you here because you guys are regulars. Y'all always have so much to share. And by not having Suze here, it's like, okay, it's so much better to have other people helping instead of doing it all by yourself. So thank y'all so much. Makes me so happy. We've got so much to talk about today. Oh my gosh. I don't know if it's because I have extra co-hosts and you all have helped me tremendously with finding stuff, but you guys found lots of interesting things for us to talk about today. So everyone here is in for a real treat because there's so many interesting things we're going to talk about today that I hope you find interesting. And just as a reminder, I'm going to put this in the nest, that this room is recorded, the space itself. And we usually spend the first half or so going, actually today we're probably going to go, I would say more like 40 to 45 minutes of all this stuff. We have so much to talk about, but we'll definitely have room for Q&A later. We'll let you know when we're going to take mic requests. So first off, what I wanted to talk about is some really sad news to report. I don't know how many people know this, but Kayvon Beckpour, he's the guy behind Periscope. He's the founder, one of the co-founders of Periscope. Which is a great tool. Always loved Periscope. When Twitter Spaces came about, so when Twitter bought Periscope, he came on board and he became part of the Twitter team, and he was head of product at Twitter. So he's responsible for a lot of things. But what's really cool is that he was in charge of Spaces. And not everybody knows this, but Spaces runs on the old Periscope platform. That's why the audio sounds so amazing, because Periscope was always such a great audio visual tool and always had such great quality. But with this big shakeup going on with Elon Musk, unfortunately, they've let go some of their really top executives, and Kayvon was one of them. So I was shocked to see this tweet. He's on paternity leave right now, and he's leaving the company after over 7 years. And to get an idea of like some of his responsibilities, I'm adding another tweet in the nest. The daily average user growth has been tremendous over the years while he's been there. And in addition to Spaces, his teams have also shipped out communities, which is a cool feature, topics, creator tools, and safety controls. So he's been responsible for a whole lot of things. And Hoseline had put out a really cool tweet as well, kind of alerting us like, hey, thank you for all you've done, because he was responsible for all those things. But really, Spaces was because of him. So I think we all owe him a debt of gratitude for all the hard work he put in to make Spaces what it is today. So were any of you guys shocked to find out that he was leaving? Because when I saw that tweet, I was like, oh, no. And I'm really concerned now because he was such a great leader for the Spaces team.
Yes, I mean, I absolutely was. And one of the things that I would highlight is reading his replies to people who were wishing him well on the leaving thread. It was absolutely clear, I think, what a strong and respected leader he'd been. I mean, his replies to people were exemplary, and he was highlighting everybody else's strengths and not his own. So, I mean, I think it seems like a sad loss, and the circumstances around it, they're slightly mysterious. But yeah, I was surprised.
It's sad. It's sad. He was such a big part of so many great things happening at Twitter. Does anybody else have any thoughts on it?
I don't think this is the last we're going to see of situations like this. When there's a shift in ownership or just a big shift in general, you're going to see changes, some of which you probably are like, oh, it's about time. And many of which you're like, oh no, what just happened? So I get the feeling this is the beginning of some shakeup that we'll see. And while we're sad to see these things go, all we can do is try and follow the journey that we're all on collectively as a community.
Yeah, great point for sure. Any thoughts, Michael?
Well, I was just thinking, I mean, even today, they released basically what is a television advertisement, and they're really leaning into Twitter Spaces now. I mean, I don't know where they're going to be distributing it, but it has high production value. It's obvious that they've been working on this for a while, and so the fact that they got rid of him last week when all of this was kind of being finished up to be released today is kind of surprising. So I guess we'll just see what direction it goes.
I know. And what's frustrating for me is that this shakeup is going on right now. I read yesterday other top executives have left, but the deal hasn't even gone through yet. And it could all fall apart. And then what? So I'm just really frustrated that so many things are happening so quickly with all of this. And I'm really bummed. But I'm so glad you mentioned this new little video commercial Spaces put out today in this tweet. I just shared it. They're just all in on Spaces. I love that. I love how they highlight in this that, real convos that you can join from your couch or the dog park or the bathtub. And it's so true. I remember one of the very first times I was in a Clubhouse before Spaces was available, and it was just Clubhouse. I was in a room once in there, and I'll never forget this, and I've mentioned it here. Some of y'all that are regulars are probably, when's Madeline going to stop telling that story? But it's just so funny because it always stuck with me, but I'll never forget this. It's a whole bunch of speakers, and one of them goes, yeah, I'm in my bathtub right now while I'm speaking to you all. And it was just, she said it so casually, and it just made me laugh because it's one of the things I love about audio is that you can be doing something else and it's okay. It's cause nobody sees you. So what if you're in the bathtub? I mean, I felt like it was a little TMI, but that's what makes, I feel Spaces so great. And I love in this tweet, they highlight that. I think that was really smart of them to do.
I agree. I think it doesn't matter where you're at because the knowledge gems that you're dropping shouldn't matter what location you happen to be in, whether that's the bathtub, whether that's the park, walking the dog. And one of the things about this commercial that I really, really like is the guy who shows up in the middle of the conversation and looks around and then disappears. Because how many of us have done that?
Oh, yeah, most definitely. And there's a second part of this tweet I just shared in the nest that I think they're also using this as a way to let everybody know, by the way, we're making it easier for everybody to join Spaces because the Spaces tab has finally been released to everyone on iOS and Android. English only, though, is the only drawback. It's just if your app is set for English. But that's huge because they've been testing this tab for so long. I had the earliest access to it. So I've had it for a really long time. And I love the progression. It really works so much better now. Now that they've released this today, have y'all noticed, does everybody have this most current version or you're still stuck in one of the old versions? Have any of y'all noticed yet? I mean, I know this is new today.
I updated 2 days ago and I have had it before, so I'm not sure what's different for me.
Okay.
I think I'm still in the test group that has the recorded tab at the top. So nothing's changed.
Interesting. Well, I'm sure it's still being rolled out. And I think everybody should be getting access to the most current version. But it's exciting news. I mean, I'm glad finally everyone has the Spaces tab because for so long people complained how hard it was to discover rooms. And it started off with so few people having access, but now more and more people are getting it. And I'm just super thrilled that it sounds like they finally have it fully released for the mobile app. So I feel like that's huge news for us now where we're at because Spaces has really evolved. I mean, look at where we're at. I mean, well over a year, almost a year and a half in. And that should be completely rolled out by now, make it easier for people to find rooms. So I'm super excited.
There's I think a small question mark for me listening to the Spaces community gathering. The latest one, they were talking about the Spaces tab and work that they're going to be doing very soon to try and improve, how it's presented, the kind of information that's displayed, and maybe some other recommendations. And I think they were fairly openly admitting that work is quite necessary because I think many people's experience of the tab has been maybe it's slightly harder to find things that you're interested in than you would like. So it's a little. I find it a little curious to be rolling this out before those new changes have been put in place.
Mm-hmm.
But it is, I think, undoubtedly good to see, because the more people that can find and get used to checking,
I
the better.
agree for sure. I think it's important. Discoverability, like it seems like that's been really top of mind for them, and they've been doing so much to try to get us to where we're at now. So I'm super excited about where this is all going, because the more people that get in these rooms, the better. Half the time it's just not knowing a room is happening. Andrew Lyons had shared something so interesting that Susan and I both saw. We saw it separately, and it was so funny because we both DM'd each other. Oh my God, you see this? And I saw it, and then she DM'd me, and she's like, "Hey, did you see this?" But there was a room in Spaces that Andrew caught. He did a screenshot where he noticed at the top they had a Twitter Moments. Now, some of us have been asking Twitter, like, hey, it'd be so great to turn the nest into a threaded tweet or a Twitter Moments, something. And most of y'all know that what I do is I take everything in the nest and create a Twitter Moments out of it. So in 30 minutes from now, I'm going to have a scheduled tweet go out from my profile linking to that. And it's just everything that we're showing in the nest, because it's just nice to have that content, that information that you can always go back to. And I find this interesting, but I did some research on this. I'm going to share this tweet because this was the room. And I don't know with my co-host if y'all, had investigated this, but with my investigation, what I was trying to figure out was, okay, what exactly is going on here? Because I had not seen this on my own. And so I was thrilled, Andrew. Thank you. I see you're here. Thank you for noticing this. Super cool. So here's what's interesting. If the tweet I just put in the nest, that was the room. You can go to the replay. Only on mobile, if you tap on this, you're going to see what Andrew shows in the screenshot, where it says, get the latest information about the war in Ukraine and on, right? And you tap on it, and it takes you to a Twitter Moments, like the kind you see with the trending hashtags. These are usually very specific to current news or events. From what I can gather, this is not a Twitter Moments they created for this room. So like the one I create, that's not going to work. So my understanding, and I would definitely love to hear from, later when we open this room up for Q&A, Andrew, Hosteline, anyone else that knows more about this, would love to hear from you. But what I gather from this, I would love to hear from my co-hosts. I'm curious, what y'all make of this, because here's what I make from it. Because I've looked at that room in Spaces. I clicked on the replay. When you look at it on desktop, it's not there. But if you go to mobile, it does show what you see in the screenshot. And I think what it's doing is based off, I'm thinking the topics that the room was set up for, or just through the conversation, maybe through the transcript of the conversation, it pulled in the most relevant current Twitter Moments out there that's part of the trending ones you would see. Do y'all have any thoughts on this, my co-host? Because I find this super interesting, but this is the only one I've seen. I've not seen this anywhere else.
Yeah, my initial thought is actually maybe to throw a little water on the fire of this. And it seems to me from that screen capture that maybe it's specific to spaces that are about the war in Ukraine, and that maybe it's something that Twitter is trying to kind of cover their tracks legally and for some other things, so that, as the war progresses, Twitter can have their official information available in any spaces that talk about it.
That's interesting.
That's kind of the initial impression I got.
Yeah.
But I'm curious to see what other
people
think.
Great thought, for sure. But what's interesting is that, when I first saw this tweet, I'm like super excited. Oh my gosh, we can now have our own Twitter Moments attached to this. But that's not what this is. So yeah, it sounds like, based on the conversation, and because could be considered maybe a sensitive topic. Anybody else have thoughts on this? Definitely curious what y'all think.
I haven't had a chance to really look at it other than the tweet from Andrew, which, Andrew's on top of stuff and he's always posting really great stuff. So if y'all aren't following him, you should. But it is interesting and curious. And Michael brings up a really good point, because it's shifting and changing constantly. And so by being able to kind of track and have additional information around it, I think that's a smart move.
Yeah. Well, in a little bit, when we're able to take our guest speakers to come in, Andrew, if you're still around, I would love your thoughts on this, because I do find it interesting. But we do have so much to cover, so we're going to move on to the next item. So this is some big news that just came out yesterday, introducing Superfollows Spaces. So, not everybody's using this feature, but there's this newer feature, Superfollows. To me, it's like Patreon, like a way for you to monetize your Twitter account. When you've got your super fans, they can pay like $5 a month and you put out tweets and extra content just for them. I have the ability to do it, but I just haven't gone down that path yet because I'm just not so sure I want to. But I do find it really interesting. But one of my biggest concerns about it was, okay, this is great, but I would like to be able to have private spaces for them. And according to this, that's what's happening now. So for anybody that's using this feature, have any of y'all seen, any of y'all use Superfollows or subscribe to somebody that has Superfollows? Because I haven't on either side. So I'm just curious if anybody else is using it.
I am not using it.
Yeah, I don't have enough followers to be eligible for Superfollows
Oh, yeah.
yet.
But have you signed up for anybody that is set up for Superfollows that you could subscribe to theirs?
Yeah, no, I haven't.
I don't
yet.
know that are using it and plus it's not like I haven't seen a way to search for it. You would just happen to see it on their profile. And I think it's just mobile. You would see it. And so it just doesn't seem to be, they haven't really put a lot into this yet, but I brought it up today because it has to do with spaces. And I think it's great that this is a way for people that are using Superfollows for their super fans to be able to do private spaces. And that's really what I'm getting to here. Private spaces, I think this is the start of what I think we're going to next see it for communities. I would love to see that for communities. I do have a Twitter Smarter community. I would love to play around with a private space just for the people in the community. I think, wouldn't y'all like stuff like that? Like having the ability to do some private hosted rooms?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's the one big piece that and polls are missing from communities.
Yeah. I just feel like, okay, if they're going to go venture down this road, they probably want to first do it for the people that are monetizing their account. And that's, so they're doing the Superfollows first. That's kind of how I look at it. I think that's, why they're going in that direction. There's also a really good article about this from Social Media Today. Matt Navarra had put out a tweet about it. So I have that in the nest as well. So if anybody here wants to read more about it, there you go. Another reason why we want to talk to Andrew later is that big congrats to him. I'm trying to put in the nest. I'm having issues here. Okay. His Spaces dashboard is now open to everyone. It's out of beta. So congrats, Andrew. That is awesome. I mean, let's all do our clap emojis and show him some love. That is excellent. It's a great tool. I've used the beta. It's super cool. And now it's out of beta. If you're hosting rooms, highly, highly recommend it. So hopefully he'll come on in a little bit and talk to us about it. So that's our news with Spaces. Let's move over to Clubhouse. Morgan, I know you've got some, we don't have any tweets to share, but you've got some stuff that you want to talk about, some news this week with Clubhouse you want to share with everybody?
Yeah, so we're still at the stage where we're seeing a few incremental nice to haves coming out, and they are building up to quite a large release. So the nice to haves are things like, well, we have what they call the activity view, which is where you see all your notifications basically. So this is being redesigned to make it much easier to group things together and have actions. So it's basically another part of the app is getting some user experience love, which we've been seeing over the last few weeks. The other one of that is this entirely new top and bottom navigation structure, which looks a lot like Instagram. So this is just going to every kind of main screen on the app and thinking about how you can redesign this to make it easier to use. So the bigger thing we don't yet have much more information about, but it's been trailed as just another way for small groups of people or friends and friends of friends to have rooms together. And we suspect that this might be the social club feature that Alex, the person who pokes around in the code on Twitter, leaked recently, but don't know. So that's being tested this week with some people. And as soon as I see it, I'll write about it. But something else. This doesn't really help anybody, but through some conversations with various people, there is this feeling that there's quite a big release coming fairly soon. So I don't know what it looks like, but we have these kind of waves of product releases on Clubhouse where you'll get fairly nice little tweaks every week while the engineering team are heads down working on a big feature. And sometimes these are foundational releases. So that's what I'm hoping for. But other than that, no other explicit Clubhouse news this week.
Yeah, that's like not a whole lot going on over there. Kind of quiet, kind of interesting. Michael, do you have anything to share about Clubhouse that you know of?
Yeah, just to piggyback on that, it seems to be, and I didn't come up with this myself, somebody else on Clubhouse shared this, and it makes a lot of sense, that Clubhouse does have a release schedule in mind for major releases versus smaller releases. And what we're kind of seeing is we see one major release every month, and then throughout the other weeks of that month, we get little iterations, little tweaks, UI changes, and so on. So it's been a little while since we've seen one of those big releases, and so maybe in the next week or two, we'll get that one.
And Jennifer, do you get on Clubhouse much?
I update the app every single time it shows that it needs to be updated, and I have gone on there recently just to kind of go back because it's been a while. And I'm always surprised by all the things that they have. They are very feature rich. If you like social audio, they have a whole heck of a lot to offer. The challenge for most of us is that we've already developed our community on Twitter, and sticking with Spaces as they grow and iterate and change is well worth it, given that we're already hanging out here and don't have to go anywhere new. But that's just been my experience.
Yeah. I love Spaces, so I very rarely go over to Clubhouse, but I'm just like with you on that. When I do go over there and there's been new updates, I am so impressed with all the features. Like they really focus on features and improving constantly. And I love that. Had Spaces taken longer to get going, I would have done more with Clubhouse. I was already hosting a weekly room in Clubhouse at first. But once I got in the early beta for Spaces, I'm like, okay, there's no need for me to do two places. And I'm known for Twitter marketing. And what I do is just so Twitter heavy. It just makes sense for me to stay in Spaces. But thanks for sharing your thoughts on that. Suze is so bummed she can't be here to share this, but she still wanted us to mention this. She just loves Alexa and just the ability to have smart speakers do things. And she is super excited to announce that AMP is now on Alexa. And you may remember AMP is something her and I have talked about here in All Things Audio. It's a newer, I think that's the one from Amazon, right? Isn't that the Amazon? I'm trying to remember because it was a while back we talked about it, but it's where people come together to have it's kind of like a live radio show. You can talk and play music. It's really cool. I played around with it a while back, found it interesting, but Suze was so excited that this announcement is that this AMP is now on Alexa. So she was super excited. I told her when she's back, she could definitely elaborate because that's more up her alley. I don't do any of my co-hosts. Have y'all used AMP much or done anything with it or have anything to share about this?
I was a guest on an AMP, and I really enjoyed the experience as a guest because the host had all the music timed out and the different segments and topics. And I could see that if music were more a part of what I do, that would definitely be a place that I would gravitate towards. But I don't mind being a guest on anyone's show, but I'm not going to put the effort to develop the playlist and to get all the segments into play because I am doing other things. But I like it. I think it's fun.
Well, and I thought that's what the Spotify audio app was going to do, right? Because what do you think when you hear Spotify? You think of music. And I really thought it was going to be the kind of social audio where it would be all about talking and playing music, which is what AMP has become. So I was just surprised that Spotify didn't go in that direction with theirs.
Yeah, I'm in the UK, so I haven't been able to use AMP, but I have been asking communities that have been going there. And I think at the moment it's still very early days. So they're still very hopeful, but the turnouts for shows are very low. So it's typically maybe 15 people turning up for their shows. So we'll wait and see. I think this is still the beta period.
Yeah, it is very early days for sure. Michael, have you tried it at all?
I tried it early on when it first came out, and it's got potential. And I think Amazon has really put a lot of their marketing weight behind it because they want it to be successful. Their Twitter is very active. They're doing a lot of really great marketing, and they've got graphically one of the best, I think, social audio platforms out there. It is a beautiful app to go into, and the way that they've done it, it's very colorful, very interesting and engaging just to look at when you're in the app. And then there's that music aspect to it. And if somebody's not into talking so much and they just kind of want to be a social audio DJ, it's a pretty good option.
Yeah, great. Okay, well, cool. Well, thanks for sharing that. Next up, we got some podcasting news, and for all of our podcasting friends, which I view podcasting as social audio, not like an app or tool like a lot of the things we talk about, but I feel like, I've been podcasting for almost 10 years now, and for me, it feels very, very social. But being that Jennifer and Michael are big time podcasters, I'm definitely curious what y'all think about this news that Apple Podcasts is now letting everyone offer annual subscriptions through the app. What do y'all think about that?
Yeah, I shared this sort of as a part of a wider view of podcasting, in that the different platforms that host podcasting or you can access a podcast on they are continuing to roll out more and more opportunities for creators to monetize their podcasts. And so this is just an expansion of that. And so I've seen it on Anchor because that's where I host my thing, but it's obviously on Apple Podcasts as well. There's just so many opportunities now. If somebody wants to monetize a podcast for whatever platform they host it on, to do something like that. So yeah.
Well, I'm going to jump in with the podcasting 2.0 aspect of this. I think it's great that Apple's doing this. I think it's great that all these other places have these are called legacy podcasting platforms versus podcasting 2.0, which is monetizable from the get-go. So I think of things like this and I immediately shift to what's the podcasting 2.0 version of this. And it is, if you think about the social audio model, and you're right, podcasting can be like that. But in the podcasting 2.0 space, you can add the live item tag, or they call it lit. And that means that your podcast will notify all of your subscribers that you are live so that they can join. And the monetizing aspect of it is that they can stream you some Satoshis, or they can send you a boostagram, which is a boost of Satoshis with a message. So there's all kinds of things that you can do. And then here's the kicker. If you throw that onto Web3, then you can monetize a third time. So I'm a fan of creators monetizing. I'm glad Apple's doing this. I'm glad others in the legacy podcasting world are doing this. But y'all, if you're sleeping on podcasting 2.0 and Web3, you're sleeping.
That's such a great point, Jennifer. Wow. Excellent perspective. Yeah, I think this is really exciting news for people that are trying to monetize their audio, audio content. So I'm definitely keeping a watchful eye on that and seeing how that keeps developing. Y'all have heard Susan and I talk about multiple times an interesting tool that is called Phlogen. And we've had Shada Mir here a few times before talk to us about it. I'm actually going to be having a meeting with her later in the week where she's going to go over some of this new stuff with the tool. But this is a really interesting thing to look at. I believe it's still in beta, but what's cool about this tool, and I know Hosteline could probably share a lot more about this in just a little bit when we're ready to do some Q&A. But what I like about this tool, I've spent a little bit of time in it, but I have a bunch of questions, so that's why her and I are going to meet later this week to go over it. So once I understand more and have a better grasp for it, I'll definitely talk more about it here in an upcoming Spaces chat with you all. But what I find interesting about this tool, and I have to tell you, I get DMs almost every day now from third-party tools that do all of this. I mean, because I don't know if they're just looking for Spaces hosts, and of course I have that in my bio, which would make it very easy to go do a search. If just a little side note, you could go do a search. When you're doing a Twitter search, let's say you look for Spaces hosts, you would type that in and you can search for people, and it's going to pull it from their bio or their name. And so I'm sure that's why I keep getting hit up by so many. I mean, it's just crazy. I'm actually going to have another meeting with one on Monday. Theirs sound really interesting as well. But here's what's cool about Phlogen. You can download the MP3 file of your Spaces, which is great because the way Twitter does it is not easy. You have to go download your whole data and then it's going to have like the last 30 days of your hosted rooms. I've tried doing it, I guess, because my Twitter account goes all the way back to 2008 and I have so much data, it just doesn't work properly. Like I just can't even go that route if I want to download. So I like how some of these third-party tools do offer a simple MP3, and not only just a download, an MP3. If you do it from Twitter through the data, it's not an MP3. It is a different file that you have to go convert into an MP3. So I like that these tools are doing that. So Phlogen does that. You can also share your playlist with your audience with just one link. I like that a lot. People can subscribe. People have been subscribing to mine. I haven't even done anything. But the fact that it's out there, people already subscribe. I get little emails, somebody subscribed to your Phlogen. It's like, cool. So they're going to see all of my past rooms and my upcoming rooms. And I love that. You can also manually add older files as well. I'll be learning more about that when I talk to her. And she also says your audience can keep in touch with you on the app. So it is in beta, flowinspaces.com. But you can go over to Product Hunt, which is the tweet here I shared with you all. And if you're not familiar with Product Hunt, it is such a great site. It's been around for many, many years. And it's just a techie's dream where people share really cool apps and tools. And it's just a great way to discover different apps and tools, especially when they're new. And also, it's just a way to get a lot more information because you'll see like details about the tool and then people talking about it. And also many times the developer is talking about it in there as well. So lots and lots of information. So if you want to learn more about Phlogen, just go check out the link in that tweet to Product Hunt. Now we've got something interesting that I'm going to let Michael chat with us about and I'm sure Jennifer has a lot to say about it too, with this new Rodecaster Pro. I haven't even gotten myself a Rodecaster yet. I plan to, but I can't wait to hear about this new Rodecaster. So Michael, tell us what's going on here. This sounds so interesting.
Yeah, so thanks for that. The Rodecaster Pro, just to give a little bit of background, is probably the flagship podcasting mixer that's been on the market for a few years now. And it was set up to be a podcasting mixer. And now, yesterday, or in the last 48 hours, there was actually a leak on a retailer site for the Rodecaster Pro II. It has not been announced yet. But it has been confirmed. Last night on Clubhouse, we actually had a conversation in our Rodecaster Pro group about it, and we had Ryan Burke from Rode come in and answer some of our questions and confirmed it, that it is going to be happening. We don't know for sure when, probably next week sometime, but he was saying that it is a lot more versatile than the original Rodecaster. It's also been designed to not just be a podcasting mixer now. It's good for live streamers and gamers and even live music. There's all sorts of audio routing capabilities. There's new preamps in it. There's just so many new features that make it a much more versatile and powerful audio mixer for any content creator. And we kind of got the scoop on it. And so that's pinned at the top of my profile right now, or you can go to my website and read more about it. So really, really exciting.
And you know what's cool about Rodecasters, for many of us that are hosting spaces, you're hearing more and more hosts talk about how they use a Rodecaster for their Twitter spaces or for their Clubhouse rooms. So it sounds like there's so much you can do with this. I know lots of podcasters use it, but it seems like a lot of audio hosts, spaces, Clubhouse, and others are really going all in on this Rodecaster. So it sounds like it's a very versatile piece of equipment.
I think the one thing that Michael brought up that gave me a bit of a pause, and I also am a sideline person looking at the Rodecaster Pro for a really long time, the original one, was that it no longer has the TRRS capability. And so, Michael, what did you find out? What's the workaround if there's no TRRS ability to link directly in?
That's a great question. And I did ask about that. That was the first question. Actually, we asked him yesterday. And what he was saying is that they have plans to accommodate that. It's not built into the Rodecaster Pro II, but it sounds like they are planning on releasing down the road some sort of adapter or dongle or something that can plug into one of the USB-C ports on the Rodecaster Pro II and give you the options for TRRS. But, you know, again, the the mixer hasn't even been released yet, and he made it sound as though that function is down the road sometime.
Seems odd that they wouldn't have just put a tiny little TRRS port in there instead of, making us up by a dongle. Although I guess as an additional product, probably a smart idea to generate additional revenue.
And they definitely have made it sound like they are forward thinking on this mixer. They want it to be a mixer that's going to be compatible with a lot of technologies for the next few years. And I think maybe because they were trying to shrink down the size and add more power, that they just kind of had to leave that out and come up with some other way to accommodate it for people who do need it. So I guess we'll see what that ends up being.
Sure, it's interesting. Thank you all for sharing about that. Next up was an interesting tweet I came across, and I wanted us to just have a quick little chat about it because all of our guest speakers, I would love your quick thoughts. This tweet says, after 6 months and 100 plus hours on audio, here are 10 things I love about social audio. And this lady goes on to talk about things like authentic interactions, instant and mindful gratification, multitasking, community building, so many great things. And let's start with you, Morgan. Like, what do you love about social audio? What are your favorite things about it?
I mean, there's the day-to-day experience of it, and then there's just the sheer potential of it. So day-to-day, one of the things that I love the most is just the number of good people I've got to know here. So that I think is the every morning I look forward to that. And the other one is being able to learn and broaden my perspective. So hearing from people from quite different places or different countries, that's been really valuable. And the main thing about the potentials is just having lots of other people being able to experience those same things. That makes me very excited.
I love that. That is so great. I love the ability to so easily communicate with people all over the world. With the 3 different rooms I co-host, the one I do on Saturdays called Twitter Audits, where we basically review Twitter profiles. The first several months, it was just filled with all these people from Africa. And I think just word of mouth happened and just amazing. All these awesome people I was meeting from halfway around the world that just wanted to learn how to make their Twitter profile look better. And I just love that. I love the power of social audio, the way we can connect with so many people and have a conversation. But those are all great points. Jennifer, what are your thoughts? Like, what do you love about social audio?
I agree with Morgan. I think the shrinking of the world was just the big aha for me. Because when social audio first came out, it's not really an algorithm per se. It's like there was a few handful of people, a few hundred people up on there. And so you were encountering folks that we'd all been on Twitter for years. I could go to someone's profile and see, oh, they've been on Twitter for 10 years, yet I had never, ever encountered them before. And now here we were having these meaningful, informational, educational, somewhat entertaining conversations. And now we were connected. I would say that the folks that I'm connected with on Twitter these days and actively engaged with and talking all the time, whether it's DMs, whether it's at messages, whether it's on Spaces, are folks that I've met within the last year on Spaces. Doesn't mean that I'm still not talking to the folks that I knew before, but the activity and the high engagement is with the folks that I discovered and who discovered me on Spaces.
Yeah, I've definitely noticed, in the over year now that I've been hosting and participating in Twitter Spaces, met so many amazing people, but like just so much more activity and interactions on my Twitter account than before. It's like kind of like a before Spaces and after Spaces. And after Spaces, Twitter for me has just been way more engagement, way more conversation, just way more interest because we're just actively talking to so many more people. That's why I've always been a big fan of Twitter chats. I've been hosting Twitter chats for over 10 years. Is it 11 years now? 11 years, every week for 11 years now. And I've always felt like Twitter chats is like this one thing on Twitter where you can meet so many people in a short period of time from all over the world. I just have always made it my mission to just talk to people about how great of a way to connect with people on Twitter. But I feel like Spaces is pretty much the same thing. Like they're both 2 different ways. I mean, with Twitter chats, it feels like texting on steroids. It's just a lot of typing. And Twitter Spaces is just this, listening and talking, which is awesome. But I have found these 2 to be great ways to have very active conversations and to just keep that engagement going way more than if you weren't doing it, right? So, yeah.
Yeah. The learn, share, grow is high. It's high in the Twitter chats, and you're so excellent at it, Madeline. No one does it like you. And if you're someone who's sitting on the sidelines thinking, I might want to do a Twitter chat, observe the way that Madeline and her team facilitates a Twitter chat, because it's a master class. And then these spaces that she does them 3 times a week. Learn, because there's a lot to be learned, but that's all part of the learn, share, grow economy that we're all in.
You are so kind. Thank you very much. And by the way, when you say team, I just want everybody to know, this is my Twitter Smarter team. They're volunteers. Like, I feel like it's a sign of a good leader when you can get people so fired up that they will volunteer their time to help you. And I've had the same people as my Twitter Smarter chat team for years. It just blows me away. I'm just like, wow, I'm just blown away. But I don't know, when you say team, it makes me think like, okay, I don't want anybody to think I'm loaded with money and I have this paid team. They're just volunteers that just want to help, which is so cool. But thank you. That's so kind of you to say. And Michael, what do you love about social audio?
It's the fact that geography is no longer an issue if you want to have a conversation about something. Like right now, we are all around the world and we came together on an app to talk about audio. I can't just walk out to Walmart and go, hey, who wants to talk about audio? Like, nobody cares. But you can find people who want to talk about the things you want to talk about wherever they are in the world. And it's kind of magical. I think that's probably the biggest thing for me.
Yeah, that is such a great point. We got a few more quick things we're going to talk about. So if anybody here would like to chat with us, go ahead and request the mic and we'll bring you up in just a minute. So Jennifer, you are doing something quite interesting. I'm going to put your tweet in the nest because I definitely want to hear your thoughts. You are doing a comparison between Descript app, which I like that app a lot, and then Headliner Video, Eddy, which I'm familiar with. Tell us about this, because this sounds super interesting, especially for podcasters.
Well, everyone knows that, or if you don't know, but I'm going to say for the most part, we all know that Dscript is kind of the end all be all because it's a multifaceted tool. You want transcripts? They got that. You need SRT for captions? They got that. Would you like to record and edit a podcast? They got that. Would you like to do that with video? They got that. Would you like to improve the quality of your sound? They've got that. So there's a whole lot that they've got, but I can tell you as someone who came into it and I looked at all of the things, it was overwhelming. It took me months to finally get comfortable with understanding all of the things that they had. So when Headliner's another great place to create audiograms. They also have Backstage to record your spaces and to give transcripts and little captions. Headliner now has this thing called Eddy, Eddy, and it's called Edit Eddy. And it's kind of modeling Dscript's way of recording a podcast, getting the transcript, editing it in real time, and it edits the audio as well. But it's one thing. And I thought about that. I thought, okay, here it is that Dscript has everything in one package. So it's like this big, beefy, amazing thing, but it's also kind of overwhelming. And I looked at what Headliner was doing. So they have Headliner app, which you can create your audiograms. Okay, awesome. They have Headliner Backstage, so you can record your spaces, create a transcript, create audiograms. Okay, cool. And now they have Headliner Eddy, and that's where you can do the records a podcast, transcribe it, create these things from. And I thought they're kind of breaking up, and it's simpler to understand. And the AI is pretty darn good, I have to say, on Eddy. I was thinking it would be kind of like, meh. No, I actually was kind of impressed. I was like, oh, this is actually pretty good. So, because I took a client's podcast episode that I already had up in Dscript, and then I put it to Eddy, and I did the side-by-side comparison, and I was like, this is actually pretty good. But again, if I want to do all the things that I can do in Dscript, I have to go to different websites for Headliner in order to do those things. And in that way, it's kind of like, but now I have to go here and I have to go there. But I also like the simplicity of it. You want to do one thing and you want to do it really well, go to this thing. But in Dscript, it's like, here's all the things. And by the way, it's a fire hose and, good luck mucking around. But once you've mucked around, it's pretty awesome.
That is awesome. I love it. And this is not just for podcasters, right? I mean, you can be used for other things, and even like people that are hosting rooms and spaces and maybe want to turn it into a podcast, or, at least have a transcript. There's a lot you could do with that, right?
Yes. Absolutely.
That is so cool. Well, thank you for sharing that and putting the links in your tweets. And one last thing, and this was something, Jennifer, you had come across and wanted to share with us, just something kind of funny and interesting, that Ice-T had done a tweet saying, I've never been on Clubhouse. I have no desire. I love how you use all caps. I've never been on Clubhouse. I have no desire to be on a 100-way phone call. F that. It's so funny. And, it just reminds me, and I saw some people reply to this, to his tweet, I'm definitely older than I look. I just got good genes. And I remember when I was probably in high school, a really popular thing was this like phone line you call, and there'd be hundreds of people on there. And it's just like this weird, I think they called it party line or something. It's just you called this free number and all these people are there. And it was very weird, but interesting. And so it makes me think he's thinking of that when he made that kind of comment, 100-way phone call. And I saw other people said that in the replies. But for some of us who are old school, it's just, that's the first thing I thought of. But I guess he's not interested in social audio, right?
Well, the thing that's funny is that Clubhouse had a pretty snarky reply, or not a snarky, they were kind of nice about it, but it came across like, oh, really? You're not interested in a 100-person call? Okay, let's rewind and see what you were doing, like you said, back in the 90s.
Right, with his 1-900 number. I know.
People change. Awesome. Maybe he's not into that so much anymore. I don't know.
That's so funny. Excellent find. Any other thoughts on it before we... I see Andrew's here, so we're going to definitely chat with him. Any other thoughts on that silly tweet?
Yeah, I guess there's a question there about, for somebody who says, oh, I just, I don't want to do just another conference call. What do you say to them? How do you say, oh, no, it's not that. It's this other thing that's better. What is that thing?
Yeah, exactly. How do you get through to somebody like that, especially when he's using all caps for some of his words, like he's trying to shout never and no in his tweet. Like he is adamant about not wanting to be a part of this. But I think that can be turned around, I
would say, Morgan, in response to your question, the value add for social audio is things like the nested tweets or pinned links or whatever, that it's not just audio conversations on a phone. It's things you can tap on, read, look at, learn about, people you can follow. It's audio plus. And so I guess that's what I would say is it's not just a conference call, it's audio plus. Yeah.
Oh, well said. I like that a lot. And so we've got Andrew here, Andrew Lyons from Spaces Dashboard. Hey, Andrew, thank you for being so patient and hanging out with us because you've got all kinds of things going on. Do share.
Hey, no worries. And I thought I'd do a little bit of investigative journalism for you. I've also been listening to the Danny Singh space for the new feature that they've just announced. I thought I'd share that with you as well.
Thank you. Because it's not being recorded, is it? Because I asked him, would they please record it? Yeah. Can you? Yeah. I replied to him directly. I said, please record this. And then host Celine sends me a DM from there and I don't see it's being recorded. So I'm like, oh man, they didn't record this. So yes, do share. We want to hear.
So the new feature is called Entity.
Entity? What does that mean?
Now, I'm going to share because I'm going to share it into the nest, of course. And the good thing about Danny, of course, he recognized that it's a working title. I did the same thing. I was like, Entity?
It's an interesting name.
It's this new chat feature that they've announced, and they've got everybody to go in and test it. So that bottom right hand where you usually click to share your space, that is now where you would chat and respond in regards to what's going on in the space. And they've got people testing it over there at the moment and responding back. But yeah, it's currently known internally and externally as Entity. Working title.
So your screenshot, I'm looking at it right now. So that's you replying and it shows up under the title. And I see the scroll bar. So then what? You can see all the others? I don't get it.
Oh, no. Sorry. That was me just showing that Danny recognized that Entity is a working title.
Okay.
Because they realize, they need to come up with a better name than that. No, it's the chat function. At
that box, yeah. And Hosteline's been here with us the last few weeks and showing that to us. And I've seen a few rooms with it, but not all rooms. So like right now, with us being in Spaces, if you're on mobile at the bottom right, you see the blue circle with the plus sign. And all that does is allow you to tweet out this room. But what's going to be replaced, it looks more like a comment box, right? I'm just thinking from memory. And because I know Hosteline has it and we tested it recently. and you tap on that. Instead, it takes you to the tweet about the room, and then we can all just reply to it. So it's kind of like a chat, but it's really in the Twitter, as a Twitter reply.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it stays after the space as well. So, and it's an automated tweet that goes out. So there's been conversations about, can the host actually determine what automates in the tweet that goes out when you start the room, if you're using this functionality. Again, they're doing what they do best. They're listening and they're understanding what all of the creators want. But that was a new feature, this entity side.
Gotcha. And I think they're not recording it because, they're just talking about something that may or may not happen, right? They just don't want to probably have a recording of it.
Yeah, I'm sure it will happen, 100%. But probably this. Yeah, I'm not sure why they haven't recorded it, actually. It seems a bit missed opportunity because they've always been very open about letting everybody hear how they work in progress.
Yeah, I'm surprised because, at least when the Twitter Spaces Q&A, their little community Q&As, they're really good about recording those because those are almost always on Thursday afternoons when I'm hosting my Twitter Smarter Spaces. And so I really appreciate when Spaces hosts record their rooms because there's so many times I can't be in a room live, but I still want to listen. And so, but I noticed that sometimes when they're just testing or the research team, they usually don't record these rooms, and it's so frustrating. It's like, oh, I can't be there, but I'm missing out. But I'm sure host Celine will fill us in probably next week. He could probably fill us in on other things they're talking about as well. But thank you for sharing that, Andrew, and congrats to you with your Spaces dashboard. We're so excited for you. So anyone can sign up now and start using it, anyone that hosts Spaces?
Yep, no sign up needed. Just go to spacesdashboard.com. You get the live leaderboards, you get the upcoming, you get to be able to search for all of the live and upcoming spaces using usernames, emojis, tags. You can find your own spaces. And the great thing about it is we record all of the nested content that's shared within any space. So even if you can't remember what was tweeted out, or you want to go and see what was tweeted out in another space you weren't in, you can pop in, find it all, one-stop shop, all open access, all on Spaces dashboard.
It's free, right? That is
free.
Awesome. Well, congrats to you getting out of beta and now have it available for everyone. And the other thing we talked about, one of your tweets earlier that was in the nest, was that Twitter moments that came up on that Walter Report Spaces about Ukraine. Is that the only time you've seen it? Because I have not seen this anywhere else. Just, that screenshot you shared, and then I went to that room, the replay of the room, only on mobile, because if you do it on desktop, you don't see it. But on mobile, you see that Twitter moments at the top. Have you seen that anywhere else, or was that the only time?
No, that's the first time. And the Walter Report is pretty much every day. So
yes.
that you can go and see that in action.
I'm very familiar with them. They've been doing this since day one of the war in Ukraine, and I'm so impressed with the people behind hosting this room, and they do it for hours and hours and hours. It's amazing. So our question is,
because I click through, because again, anyone who's on the top of the spaces, I just go in and just check and see what's going on, and I suddenly clicked through and I thought, well, that doesn't look like a normal tweet. And the interesting thing was, before you even go into the space, so before you even go to listen to the space, this is the key thing. You can click on that card and go and look at that moment, which I thought was fascinating. And then, of course, when I clicked through to the space, then it sat on top of the moment, sat on top of the nest. And at first I thought it was this new thing, this new event element. But then I remembered, no, the moments are called these moments. And then I clicked back through to my moments in my own space and realized that they've changed a little bit of the way that you do the moment. They're calling it moment makers now. And I don't know if you noticed that, but when you click through to your moment on the left-hand side, it says, seize the moment, choose an existing moment, or create a new one.
Right.
Are you a moment maker? Which I felt was very encouraging, because at some point I thought they were thinking about getting rid of these moments. And I love them. I know you do as well.
Yep. It's a highly underutilized feature, and I think they're trying to encourage people to use it, because I did notice a few months ago the change in the wording when you go there and the little graphic. So I think they're trying to make more about this to get people interested in it.
Yeah, and I think this one in particular is not something that everybody can get hold of. I think this is either, I think what Michael was saying was very pertinent as well. They're obviously seeing this as quite a big thing. So they've, again, this is me speculating, and they've either reached out to that host and said, look, we can add this into the space, because it's all from big news organizations. Paul Armstrong had an interesting angle, actually, to think that when you've got this kind of space, which is happening every day consistently on such a big world matter, that you could potentially see them also offering into that a donate button onto the top of that.
Oh, yeah.
You know, to assist in that. And it's, you know, probably the first example of that when they spot something of how they can ingest these type of new functionalities on top of it. And it works really well. It doesn't seem to interfere too much in regards to the current Nest we have, but it is the first one I've seen. I will keep tabs on it. I have reached out to some of the Twitter guys to find out if they know any more. But yeah, just really, really hot off the press with that one.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I mean, a long time ago when I first started as a beta tester for Spaces, and they had DM'd me and asked, you know, what was my wish list of things. And, you know, very early on once we had the Nest, I was like, you know, it'd be great if we had some way to keep this content together and so that we can repurpose it or just let it live on, because the Nest, we really see how valuable that can be, especially for a room. Of the 3 rooms I co-host each week, this is the one room where it's all about the Nest. Everything we talk about, we have a tweet for it in the Nest. And early on, you know, I just hated, like, here's all this great content that you're never going to see again. And it used to be, even though we record the rooms for the longest time, when you go to the replay, the Nest was gone. And I really hated that. I love now that, you know, you can see the Nest, although I don't know if it's me, but lately I'm not seeing the Nest anymore in replays. I don't know what's going on.
Well, that's one of the things with the dashboard that we wanted to make sure the hosts always had a record of what they've shared, because
excellent.
If for any reason the room did go down and you had to restart a space, at least you found a way to go back into your last recorded space on the dashboard and then just repurpose all of the tweets you could see. But, you know, the idea of trying to remember them all, or we've had issues, of course, when hosts have said, okay, we're going to keep the space open for another couple of minutes. If you all want to bookmark these spaces before we close it, go ahead and do this. And we kind of thought, you know, we're all busy, we're all moving around. So with a dashboard, we collect all those for you now. So there's always a safe threshold and a space. We collect it all. You don't have to worry about any of that anymore. We'll do it all for you. And as I've said on a few spaces in the past, we are also going to start building up leaderboards for all of the nested content. So we think the nested content, the shared content within a space, is such a valuable resource that we want to showcase it globally of what's being shared.
That is awesome. I love that. I was hoping with this screenshot you had shared with the Walter Report Spaces that we were going to, that maybe they were testing the ability for us to add our own Twitter moments, because for this room in Spaces each week, before we go live, I take all the I have this whole process I put together where I go and I bookmark, and I do have Twitter Blue, so I pay the $3 a month for the Twitter Blue subscription. And the beauty of that is that you can organize all of your bookmarks. So I have a folder just called All Things Audio. And every week when we're prepping for this room, I put all the tweets in there that we're going to put in the Nest. So I got them all there. Then I can go create the Twitter moments. And because, you know, Twitter moments used to be way easier to use, and now it's a little bit more difficult. And for me, the easiest way is just to grab the link, the URL for each individual tweet. So by having all the tweets bookmarked in the order I want them in, I can then just have another tab open for moments and just manually put them all in. I mean, there's other ways to do it, but for me, that's been the fastest, easiest way. So I have that ready to go. So once we go live with this room each week, I've already created Twitter moments. I would just love for it to be an automated feature that Twitter provides for us in Spaces so that we don't have to do it. I think more people would use moments if something like this could be automated from the Nest. and get more people using this underutilized feature. But if anyone wants to go back to any of my Twitter moments, I do them every week for my Twitter Smarter Chat and for this room, All Things Audio and Spaces. And the way you find it, if you're on desktop, on desktop or mobile, it's the same. Next to my profile name and my picture, you would click on the 3 dots on the right side, and it's like a whole menu of things you may not even realize is there. One of them says View Moments. If somebody is using moments, that's where you'll see them. Like Andrew, I'm on yours, and I see you've got several. That's cool. If you go to mine, you're going to see lots and lots because I've been using it for this feature for a very long time. It's a great way to just curate a bunch of tweets together into one place. And the way I'm using it for the Nest is a great example of how to use it. But I think you're right with this particular room with the Walter Report. I think because what they're doing is like trending and breaking news. They're just putting up the generic Twitter moments that you would get through the trending section of Twitter and just putting that in there where you can get more information about what's going on in Ukraine. And that's cool. I love that.
I think they've probably been very cautious about what they put in that as well. So I think they're probably
they're highly curated. They're highly so when you're on Twitter and like if you're on desktop and you look at the sidebar, what's happening? A lot of those are Twitter moments, but they're curated. Like when I look at mine, they're almost always the same type of publications. Like I see Huffington Post, I see one called Stat. I've seen others where they let someone through those organizations specifically make these. They're highly curated. They don't let just anyone do it. Now you can create your own Twitter moments, but they're not going to show up under what's happening or with trending topics. But what you show in this screenshot is something that's part of that's highly curated. And that's, it would make sense. They're just making it so you can get more information about what's going on in Ukraine by clicking on that and seeing this curated feed of news that is actually a Twitter moment. But I'm hoping this is the start of them going, hey, we could have some other uses of Twitter moments here, like people like me that use it each week for my room and spaces. I would love to be able to place it right there.
Well, what it does show is that it works from a usability point of view. So, yeah, there's no reason why it might spark them to actually offer that as an option for us hosts when we start a space.
I hope so. But it's also good to know that your dashboard gives us the ability to keep our Nest intact. And that's huge, Andrew. So thank you for that's such a great idea on your part. I really appreciate that you do that. I don't know how many other of these third-party tools are doing that because I don't know if you heard me earlier, but right now I'm getting DMs pretty much every day from just all these third-party tools cropping up. They're trying to help Spaces hosts with all these things. And they all pretty much do the same thing, but you're doing things that are very stand out for sure.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And we want to continue to surprise and delight the hosts and the users. That's our goal and our North Star. And we're concentrating on discovery. That's our big thing.
Well, thank you for joining us today and sharing all this stuff with us. You're always doing great things in the Spaces space. So thank you so much for that. And I want to thank all my fabulous co-hosts, Jennifer Navarrete, you've been so awesome, Michael Sterling, Morgan Yvetz. You guys are all amazing. Thank you all so much. Round of applause for them to step up and help me with Sue's being out this week. Just love this group. I think this just made for a great, well-rounded conversation. Any final thoughts as we close out, guys? I'd love to hear your thoughts as we
That was the quickest hour I've ever experienced in my life. That seemed like 15 minutes and we're already done. Wow. Great room. Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks, Michael.
Yeah. I have to say that the research and social audio and everything that's coming to pass, there's a whole heck of a lot we didn't talk about because the news is coming like a fire hose. So stay tuned, folks, because it's constantly growing and developing. And if you're in this space, strap in. It's going to be an amazing journey.
So true. When Susan and I started this room, it's been over a year now. And in the beginning, it's like, gosh, there's always something for us to talk about every week. Let's just keep this going. And I can't believe we've been doing this every week for over a year. And there's never not anything to talk about. There's always so much with social audio. And so as long as there's news about it, we're going to keep doing this room each week. So yeah, it's always something interesting. And y'all all gave really great perspective on things as well. And Morgan, any final thoughts from you?
Yeah, I mean, this is a cliche by now, but just after such a packed week, to remind ourselves that we are still really early. There are still enormous numbers of people who've never heard of or tried social audio. And we probably don't even know what the final shape of this will be on any platform. So this is still very exciting.
That's such a great point. That's so true. We're still early days on this. Thank you to all of our speakers who came on and shared so much great stuff. And we're available in all of your favorite podcast apps. We're out there, All Things Audio. You can also go to allthingsaudiopodcast.com as well.
You certainly can. And you can catch us here on Twitter and use the hashtag AllThingsAudio, and we'll pick that up throughout the week. So that's it for this week. But thank you so much to everyone that's been here in the space with us and those of you listening. And we'll catch up with you next week.
Bye, everybody.